Does this current Calgary Flames roster have even the bones to be a Stanley Cup contender?
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jessica Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at Monarch Money for 50% off of your first year. I thought that today would be a good day to kind of dissect what it takes to get to the Stanley Cup final, let alone win. But I feel like, we talk about the Flames needing to improve and following this model, following that model. But what do they have structurally that could make a Stanley Cup winning team? What do we do? How do we build one? Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And let's just jump right into this because, wow. What a game one it was. I don't think anyone listening is probably rooting for the Oilers. I think we're all kind of pulling for the Panthers. So it was fun to see them, kind of hold a lead. They were 31-0 while holding a lead. And ouch. They did not do such a thing. But what do you need? Because I think it's fairly obvious, you need the scoring. That's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. But there are so many pieces and different elements to each roster of all the playoff teams this year that make them unique and make them a challenge. Obviously, like the Jets had, good scoring, and I mean, not early on in the playoffs, but Connor Hellebuyck is Connor Hellebuyck. Obviously, the Maple Leafs have their core four. They have, when you look at a team like St. Louis, they have Jordan Binnington and Robert Thomas. And of course, when you look at the Panthers and Oilers, you have Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Stuart Skinner, who, is an interesting, very Markstrom-esque, I would say, in his consistency. But, you finally have good defense. You have a lot of scoring. You have not just scoring from your top two lines, but really from everyone. And it's a concerted effort. And with the Panthers, you have the fact that you're the reigning Stanley Cup champion on your side as well. And I look at this Flames roster and I think of how they would stack up to either of these teams. And just based on the current situation, Panthers and Oilers are up here and the Flames are off screen. To me, the Flames have pieces, but not enough. And not necessarily the ones that it's going to take to get you to the Stanley Cup final, just on their name alone. Like when someone says, oh, Sidney Crosby, you're like, yeah, he could take us to the Stanley Cup final. Obviously, Connor McDavid. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. And that's just part of where the Flames are at in this reconstruction period, whether it's a rebuild, retool, transitional period, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like I've been saying that for 3 years now, because I feel like if you use the wrong term, someone's upset, and you use this one, everyone else is upset. So I think really what is so impressive about both Edmonton and Florida is their defense. I think Edmonton has had their work cut out for them there. And then I think, Florida did right by trading for Seth Jones. I think that obviously that was a no-brainer, I would say, for Florida, because obviously he's a good defenseman and what he's capable of. But when he's on a team where he is basically carrying the entire workload, of course it's going to look different. And when you put him with high-end players like you have on the Florida Panthers, he's going to shine. And last night, when the game went to overtime, all I could think about was the Columbus and Tampa game that went to five overtime, quintuplet overtime, whatever. And just, I was like, I wonder if Seth Jones has flashbacks to any like postseason overtime, because I remember like everyone like melting down seeing the graphic of his time on ice just keep ticking up north of an hour. But for the Flames, which I think they've gotten better at, I will say, as the season went on, I think that they got better at this. But you have to have a certain level of discipline. And it's not just, having an extra, morning skate, doing extra strength and conditioning. It is not just about fueling your body, right? It is about playing a clean, safe game. Now, by safe, I don't necessarily mean, what we've witnessed, but I think you have to play it smart. And with it being the Cup final, we saw things that did not get called last night. Let's be honest. I think Sam Bennett got away with a bit, and I think Edmonton got away with a bit. And you're not going to call everything in the Cup finals. That's just not, it's not realistic. It's not what people want. They don't want stoppages. It is a much more physical game. And part of me does think that the Flames have that on their side, but I think that they're still a very young team in terms of knowing when to not let their emotions get the best of them. And coming up next, we're going to continue to talk about the bones of the anatomy of a Cup finalist and just kind of where the Flames are at, what kind of foundation do they have, and what skill sets from which players can they build off of. Coming up next here on Locked On Flames. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all of my money go? Same, honestly, I can't even lie. But between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is super easy to lose track. But that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. I like that you can see everything all in one place. It is not, bouncing between 6 different apps in a web browser to, check this account, check that account. Can't have this lined up here. It is all in one place. And you can manage money with your partner, and it's smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off of your first year. Thanks everyone for tuning in and making Locked On Flames part of your day. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. I know we talk about the game getting faster and faster every year. And I remember when, obviously McDavid was coming on the scene and everything, how fast he looked in comparison to these players. And you still see it. Like some of, obviously, McDavid and those elite players just fly around the ice like it's like they're walking on clouds. It is smooth, it is seamless, and I am very envious because I do think that that is somewhere where the Flames can start. I will say, I think the Flames have invested in skating and having a skating coach work with the team. And I have to give props to Matt Coronado because that was one of his weaknesses in his rookie year. And he was struggling with stamina. He was struggling with, just getting adjusted to the NHL level. And he worked with the skating coach all last summer, put in the work, put in the hours, and they worked on getting him to a better physical level when it comes to skating. And the motions and dynamics, the physics behind it. It's not just as simple as like gliding across the ice. There's more to it. And I think when you have something like that you can like physically see and grow off of, it's very good because it's not like scoring, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, where, you can see, okay, this player had 12 goals last season and now they jumped to 19. That's an improvement. Sometimes there are things that just have to improve. And that is, I think skating is a huge work in progress for this team. Huberdeau is not a strong skater. That's been the name of the game his whole career. You have older guys like Backlund, your fourth line, not necessarily I think Ryan Lomberg, pretty fast, but at the end of the day, you need more than just like 2 or 3 players on your team that can skate well and skate fast. I think that they can obviously continue to build, and whether it is this next generation of up and coming players that also improve on the speed and the skating, or you have players that are in your system now, like Coronado, like Zary, like Pospisil, like Perek, like Brustewicz, who continue to build on the strengths in skating that they have, but you make sure that it isn't some sort of like flash in the pan. I think you're going to have to be looking for these physical improvements because the Flames sometimes looked slower than molasses. They just looked stuck. They looked like those tension cords. I don't know what they're called, but like when you put one around your waist and try to run and someone's holding you back, basically. That's what they look like at times. And you don't see that type of skating in the Stanley Cup final or really in the playoffs after the second round, or I would say after the first round. You have to have strong skaters that can move at the drop of a dime and move well. It is that simple. Like I mentioned before, you have Matt Coronado and Zane Perek, who are good skaters and will only continue to take steps forward since they have the world at their fingertips. We know that the Flames are obviously very invested in developing their players, and I think it kind of feels like they're taking things a little bit more seriously than they have in the past. I don't know, I would say probably 5 years ago, but I think that this is something to look forward to. And when I look at this rebuilding situation, I think everyone needs to remind themselves that like Rome wasn't built in a day. And a hockey team isn't magically fixed and brought to the next level in 2 seasons. I think it is perfectly okay to want more from this team. And if you want to just kind of be content and like a casual fan, I guess, and just kind of be okay with finishing 16th every year, then so be it. I'm not going to tell you there's a better way to be a fan than another. But there's a lot of work that has to be done for this team. And right now you are laying the foundation and have to be smart about how you build up from here. I would love to see the Flames obviously continue to draft very well, but I want to see them make some trades for some younger players, and or maybe not even younger players, but for the draft picks, for that draft capital. Unless there is something crazy, I think that the Flames just have to continue to stockpile draft picks. And because we talked about it the other day with James about how there's like this kind of log jam and the forward group, and they have to be strategic about moving players and working in these next generation of players. And of course, when you have 97 forwards under contract for the next 12 years, it feels like it's a little hard to do that. But you work with what you got, you make hard decisions, and that's where you start seeing more progress with the speed and the skill. And what we're going to talk about next, which is, of course, everyone's favorite topic, scoring. Because we know the Flames struggled scoring goals this year. They went how many games without scoring more than 3 goals the month of November? Coming up next on Locked On Flames. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and making Locked On Flames part of your day. Make sure you are following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. So, one thing that is like very obvious, and I feel like you shouldn't even have to say it, but you do. The Flames need to score more goals if they want to consider themselves a playoff team. I think the average goals scored in regular season games this year was 4 goals. The Flames struggled to score more than 3 through most of the season. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It obviously did happen. But you can't just go on streaks where your offense, your entire offense is red hot, and then y'all plummet. There has to be some sort of unintentional rotation with the struggles, and just a cycle of, okay, like this player's hot, great, and it's okay if he gets cold because this one's going to step in, blah, blah, blah. But for the Flames to be a true playoff contending team, they need to have more than 3 20-plus goal scorers. I know. Isn't that a bold statement? Or they really need to have more than 2 30-plus goal scorers at least. They have to be consistently scoring. I'm not saying you have to be a point-per-game player. It would be nice. Nice to have a few of those again. But you have to have consistent offense across the board. And I think that that's what kills the Flames. I think, pretty much any night you could expect a Kadri goal, or any night you could expect a Huberdeau power play goal, or a clutch Matt Coronado goal, which is fantastic. But I need more in the lineup. I need to see, okay, like Connor Zary's net front presence, great. Like he's going to tip it in. That should be expected and, shown like a result, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. You got to do something, because Nazem Kadri isn't going to be in your lineup forever. He isn't going to be scoring 30-plus goals for the rest of his career. I mean, maybe he will. That I would love that. I would love to see that. But you can't just rely on him. It's great to see Coronado following in his footsteps. It was great to see Huberdeau hit 28 goals, but you still need more. I want to see more from Igor Sharangovich. He is a player that just signed a 5-year extension that kicks in this year that had a horrendous season after having a career year, and he needs to bounce back this year. He should be at least scoring 15 goals. I want to see, high teens to low 20s from Connor Zary, should he be healthy. Blake Coleman, I want to see in the low 20s, I would say closer to the mid to high teens, but I want to see Mackenzie Weegar scoring again. I want to see Rasmus Anderson scoring again. Realistically, I'd like to see everyone scoring again. Martin Pospisil, I don't understand where he went. I don't know what happened. So, Michael Backlund, I understand. He is in his final year of his contract. He is over 35 years old. He's not going to be able to go out there. He's never been the player that's going to go out there and score 30 goals a season. So it's about tempering those expectations as well, but also having expectations. I don't think you have to. I mean, it would be great for the Flames to start scoring more goals. I think that would do them wonders, of course. And when you have an offensive defenseman like Zane Paret coming into the league, that does bolster you. It lifts you up a bit. It helps you out, gives you a little bit more of a cushion. But where is the scoring right now outside of Coronado, Huberdeau, and Kadri? You need something else. And I know that, we're building for the long term. We're not building for a short-term fix, according to Craig Conroy. So maybe you don't add a 25-plus goal scorer right now. I mean, I don't know what you do. That sounds very attractive. I mean, if it's a young player, of course, but I don't want someone who's established in their late 20s. That's not going to do the Flames any good when it matters. And again, holding on to the draft capital, stashing it, doing what you can to get your hands on these types of scorers is going to do you wonders. And I don't know if that's going to be through the draft or through trades. I mean, the way players talk about Calgary makes it seem very attractive. I mean, I think it's a fantastic city. I love the city. I would move there in 2 seconds if I could, if I knew how to move to Canada. But there's a lot more than just the city and the vibes and the locker room culture that bring players to a team. I think that the locker room culture is a huge, huge part of it, which is great. But right now, I think the Flames really need to focus on building, and not building for now, but the long-term picture. So when you hear that they are going to be, in the mix for Mitch Marner or for Ekblad or for Sam Bennett or this player and like the big names during free agency, it doesn't make sense to me. They're not in a position where they should be adding a 37-year-old Brad Marchand to their roster. And yes, he's in the Stanley Cup final, but if he's going to sign anywhere, it's probably going to be with Florida again. And maybe the Bruins will do right by him and bring him home. I've seen Charlie Coyle's name floated around. I don't think the Flames need to sign another center that he doesn't make sense in the lineup. Because, you have Kadri, you have Frost, you have Sharangovich, you have Zary, you have Backlund, you have Rooney's probably gone this summer, but you have, let's say, Justin Kirkland. There's been talks of him coming back. You have to move on from some of these middle six forwards. And you have to do it smart. And I do worry that the Flames are just very gung-ho on signing culture guys that can score 15 goals a season max. I don't think that that's what they need. They should probably make minimal free agent moves. and work on clearing things out before bringing more things in. The Flames have a very long way to go before they're sniffing a Stanley Cup final or a Western Conference final. They need to do a lot more offensively and defensively. Dustin Wolf can only do so much. Nazem Kadri can only do so much. You have to be smart. You have to be disciplined. You can't be taking ridiculous penalties. I mean, granted, Nikita Zadorov isn't on this team anymore, so you don't have to worry about consistent high-staking penalties, but like Blake Coleman in the high-staking penalties, or Martin Pospisil just being Martin Pospisil. Like, you have to be smart and methodical. Calculated may even be the word I'm looking for. And you have to be competitive up and down your roster. I shouldn't just look at your first line and go, oh no. I want to be a little bit worried about your third line. I want to be worried about your defense. Your special teams. What's your goaltender look like? And once the Flames have more of that in line and those boxes checked, the better their postseason run or likelihood of making the postseason will be. But that'll do it for me here on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope you're all enjoying June and are staying safe, staying cool, staying dry, staying hydrated. Stanley Cup finals are on right now, and before we know it, it'll be the draft and then free agency, and Locked On Flames has you covered Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And I will be back tomorrow with maybe some news out of Calgary and, of course, some more off-season chatter.